Hey guys, in today's video, we're gonna talk about matching the grip you have with wrist conditions through your swing. Based on what grip you have, do you need to adjust wrist conditions and how do you do that? So stay tuned, I'm gonna go through all that. All right guys, so let's talk about matching the grip you have with wrist conditions in your swing. So the short version of this, what I'm not sure might be a longer video, is just to tell you guys that there's no such thing as perfect wrist conditions through the swing for everyone. Meaning how you put your hands on the club, whether they be in what we would term a weaker position, normal grip, or stronger grip, not only change your wrist conditions immediately in terms of how they sit on the club, but also change what you need to do through the swing, mostly to manage the club face. So let's dig into that a little bit and talk about what that means. Let's start with a neutral grip position. So a neutral grip, to me, means kind of both the V's you have on your hands are somewhere between your chin and your right shoulder. This is not meant to be a grip video, just as that's what I'm talking about here, neutral grip. If I have a neutral grip throughout my swing, that would mean I can have neutral wrist conditions, okay? So when I set my hands on the club, my left wrist with a neutral grip will be slightly extended. There's a slight cup to it. And my right wrist, when I put it on there, is virtually flat. So slight cup and flat. Now, as you guys know, that's not the impact condition I want, but that's a neutral starting position. So if I have a neutral grip pattern, with the V's just between my chin and my right shoulder, when I do my takeaway pieces with neutral wrist conditions, which would be flat left wrist, slightly bent right wrist, my club face then is square during my takeaway. It's square at the top of my swing, square coming down, and square on the way through. That would require a lead wrist flat, right wrist slightly bent back, and just a normal amount of supination. If I do the same thing from this angle, normal grip, for me to get here, which is slightly toe down, which I want, my lead wrist is just flat, my right wrist bent back. Again, flat, slightly bent back, flat, slightly bent back, and there. That would be how I would do it with neutral wrist conditions. Now, if I start to go more towards a weak grip or a strong grip, some things change. Let's start with a weak grip. Weak grip, I'm saying you take your hands and you're rotating them counterclockwise. So your left hand, heel pad still on top, your left hand would be more in this position, which the back of my hand's more towards the target, the V's kind of more towards my chin or even left of my chin. When I put my left hand like that in a weaker position, you'll see the cup or the extension is out of my wrist, so my wrist is already preset, essentially flat. Also, as that changes, my forearm rotation changes a little bit. So here's my normal grip, had to have a little bit more forearm rotation. Here's my weaker grip, less forearm rotation, something to keep in mind in a minute. My right hand grip with the weak grip basically doesn't change much. It's essentially the same deal. But because my left wrist is already flat at address, and what that's going to do to my club face, in swing, if I did nothing different, the weaker grip wants to make my club face point more open. Meaning if I got my hands and everything back to the same position I did before with the normal grip, my club face would be too open. Okay, so my club face would be more pointed to the right if I had the same delivery as a normal grip. So with that, I need to do something to square the face. And essentially, the first thing I would do would be look at lead wrist flexion. Meaning, if I took my normal setup, weak grip, if I went back and did my normal takeaway with the other way, now my club face isn't slightly tilted down, now it's toe up. For me to get my club face slightly tilted down, which I would call normal, 15, 30 degrees, I now need to bow, flatten, flex, whatever, my left wrist, get my left wrist more towards the ground, my right palm more towards the ground right away during the backswing, right away during the takeaway. I also now need to bow my left wrist, flatten it, bend my right wrist back more to have my club face square at the top. The same thing applies coming down. I really feel like I'm cranking that thing down just to get my club face normal. It's because my lead wrist is weak, right? So there, and then at impact, I need to really have it bowed. And then the second part too is I need to add a little bit more forearm rotation or supination there. So that's a long way for me to tell you, if you have a weak left grip, you need to bow your left wrist more and you need to supinate your left arm more. I probably could have just said that. Bow your left wrist more and supinate more if you have a weaker grip pattern, okay? Now the opposite is true if I have a very strong grip. So a very strong grip would look like this. My left wrist is very extended. My lead wrist and whole arm is turned more. My right hand is even past flat. It's even bent this way here, like I'm doing a little forearm curl here. And that has my club face square. Now, if I did the same takeaway pieces where I bowed everything, now look at my club face. Turned way down towards the ground, same wrist conditions, flat. Look at my club face there, way, way, way shut. Now, are there some people who can do that like a Dustin Johnson and turn enough and side bend enough? Yes, they can. You watching it and me probably not going to get away with that. That's probably going to be some issue. If you can, cool, that's fine. The point being, if you bow your left wrist and your grip is really strong, you're going to probably have the club face too tilted down during the downswing, which is going to lead to some dynamic loft and face to path issues, okay? So again, can you play with it tilted that far down? You can, but you got to do some things with the handle to make that work, right? And my release pattern, if I have a super strong grip, as I get down into here, here's where my wrists need to look like now for the face to be square. You'll notice my left arm has almost no lead arm supination. My back of my left hand's pointed more towards you, and I'm flat, not bowed at all, and the face is already square. So with a stronger grip, I now don't need to bow my left wrist at all. I can even get away with a slight cup or extension, and I don't need lead arm supination nearly as much with that. That's sort of what you need to get from this. If you have a normal grip, you want pretty flat with the left wrist, you want pretty normal with the right wrist, you want a normal amount of supination, whatever that is. If I have a weaker grip, I need to bow my left wrist more, bend my right wrist back more, I need more supination just to square the face. Here's a weak grip, right? I need to, if I don't do any of that, if I had a weak grip, right? Here's my release pattern when I had a stronger grip. Now look at the club face there. This is exactly what I did here when I had a stronger grip. And now the club face is pointed way to the right. How do I square that up? Well, I would flex my lead wrist and I would supinate my arm, and now all of a sudden, there it is. You see that? Here's weak with a strong grip release. Now I bow my lead wrist, right? I'm bowing that here, and I'm adding some supination, and there's my face is square. So that's sort of how that matches up. So I hope that that makes sense. I don't think that should be confusing for you guys. That's sort of the basics there. Stronger grip, you can cup, not as much rotation. Weaker grip, you need more bow, you need more supination. So hopefully that makes sense, and that demonstrated it well. If you guys haven't, please subscribe, click the like button down below, and leave a comment if you guys have any questions.